Well, Australia's energy ministers are meeting in Brizzy today ahead of National Cabinet tomorrow. Let's try this again. Joining us live is the Climate Change and Energy Minister, Chris Bowen. There he is. He can hear us this time. Minister, good to see you. Thanks for your time. So will you get a deal done with the states on coal and gas price caps by the end of the week?
Good morning, Pete. Great to speak with you and great to be able to hear you. Look, we are working very hard with the states, particularly with New South Wales and Queensland, because they're the coal-producing states, the black coal-producing states. So we've got energy ministers meeting today. That meeting is about the longer-term plans, about the capacity of our system, about a keep-the-lights-on mechanism, and I'm hopeful of making good progress with my state and territory colleagues on that today. Separately, me and my energy minister colleagues are supporting our Prime Minister and our Premiers in their conversation. We have powers at our level, at the federal government. The states have some powers. What we've done is work very hard to come up with a model where we use our powers most effectively, they use theirs, and we're talking to the states about that. And look, I think, Pete, all the state premiers, particularly New South Wales and Queensland, the two black coal-producing states, are acting in good faith, talking to the Prime Minister, thinking the issues through. In one level, this is very complicated. There's a lot of complicated policy parts. But at another level, it's very simple. We can't let these power prices just flow through to the Australian people, to Australian industry, to Australian households. It's not their fault. It's Vladimir Putin's fault. And we're just not going to stand by and see that happen without taking the sting out of it. OK, there are problems with price caps, though, and what I wanted to ask you is that if prices are capped and the market pays less for that energy, what's to stop miners from just keeping it in the ground or selling overseas to someone who is willing to pay more? Well, they're the complicated issues, exactly the sorts of issues that we've been working through, both with our legal advisors at the Commonwealth Government, with the states, talking to them about that. I mean, there's lots of people out there saying, oh, this is all too hard, you can't cap, you can't do this. What's the alternative? Let Australians pay more for power next year? I mean, I understand coal companies are out there today saying don't change anything. They're quite happy with the profits they're making off the back of the war. We're not. We're not happy with Australian households and industry paying the price of that. So, of course, we are going to act. And what we're doing is talking to the states. As you'd understand, we've got a lot of power at our level. The states have different powers at their level. And in some cases, their powers we think can be used more effectively than ours. In other cases, we can use our powers. That's what we're talking to the states about. Those discussions have been happening for a long time now, for about a week or more, and they continue in good faith. Right,
but the point being that if you set up those price caps when it comes to coal, $125 a tonne, you can't force them to do that, can you?
Oh, there are various powers at the disposal of various governments.
So what would you do? Fines?
Well, I'm not... Pete, as much as I like you, I'm not negotiating through you. We talk to the states direct, but these are the complicated issues that have to be worked through. But as I said, at one level it's complicated, at another level it's real simple. Are we going to let these price rises flow through? I mean, coal is a lot more expensive today than it was in December. Coal companies were making nice profits in December and they were very sustainable. Now, coal has gone through the roof, as has gas, since December. The only thing that's changed since then in relation to coal and gas around the world is the invasion of Ukraine. Governments around the world are dealing with this. Every government is responding in their own ways. I mean, nobody is immune. That's why you've got left governments, right governments, all looking at pretty serious responses, as we should, because it's not the fault of the worker going off at a factory today their bosses are coming under real pressure for energy prices to keep the doors open. We don't want to see those doors shut, hence we're acting.
All right. What percentage of coal used in our power stations is under long-term contracts and therefore not affected by spot prices since the war?
Varies from state to state and power station to power station, Pete. Some have long-term contracts locked in, some of the power stations. Others are working more on the spot market. It just really depends on which market, which power station. That's one of the issues that we've been looking at.
But would it be a high percentage across the board?
Well, look, again, it really does vary. You've got some power stations which have had contracts in place for a while. You've got others that have got contracts coming up for renewal. You've got others that are looking, into the more medium future. Everybody's different, and hence you've got to have a response. Your question is fair enough, but you've got to have a response to deal with all the possible scenarios, because one of the things we've been looking at in recent weeks is exactly the question you asked. If you did this, how much is already contracted? If you only acted on uncontracted, how much is already contracted? Well, it varies from power station to power station. And the way the system works is the price is usually set by the most expensive generator at that particular time. So you
Right,
can reduce the operating costs or the prices for a whole lot, but unless you're reducing it for the most expensive as well, that's why you've got to really act on it all. You can't just say, oh, we'll fix gas, we won't worry about coal. You can't say, we'll fix coal, we won't worry about gas. You've got to do it all.
Right, so but with so many unknowns there, how can you be sure that the policy will actually work?
Well, because we've been working those issues through and because we've been talking to the states about their understanding. I mean, some of the states own the power stations, other states regulate the power stations. They've got very good data on the power stations' cost structure. We've been talking to them and sharing that data. You know, that is the reason why, Pete, this has actually taken a little while to work through. We weren't going to rush out 3 weeks ago with a solution, not having checked all these things that you're very legitimately raising. These are questions that we've been asking and checking for the last 3 or 4 weeks and working through with the states, exactly those sorts of questions.
Are you going to get a deal before Christmas?
That's the plan. We've said we'll act before Christmas because that's what we need to do. You've got price rises next year in the budget, which we're very upfront with the Australian people about. We're not going to hide things like the previous government did, like Angus Taylor did. We've been upfront about that. Now you get a draft increase in February, you get a final increase in May. That's why we're acting now. You've got to act now, because if you leave it till then, you left it too late.
OK, but rather than cap prices, and I'll have to end here because I'm out of time, rather than cap prices, because there are so many complications, as you point out there, would it not be more effective to just increase supply and delay the closure of Adhering and Liddell power stations until there's enough renewable capacity to replace that?
No, I mean, I've seen the coal companies out there saying that, and that would be unsurprising that coal companies would say the answer is more coal. Liddell has been scheduled for closure since 2015. That is just a statement of fact. And Adhering's got longer to go yet, but that is also not the answer here. We need a faster and more orderly transition to renewables, and that's exactly what I'm talking to state energy ministers about today. That element is down to us to sort. Governments have been talking about this for years. I'm very hopeful of taking a big step forward today to get that sorted. It's called a capacity mechanism, which is really a keeping the lights on mechanism to get more renewables, but to do so in an orderly fashion and to make sure those renewables are firmed with storage. That's the key challenge. The previous government couldn't get it done. I'm pretty determined to get it done.
Chris Bowen, we'll leave it there. Appreciate your time, though. We'll talk to you again soon.